Thanks for joining us.
Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Welcome to the podcast. You are now tuned in to this episode of our podcast. Today, we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. And now, please welcome your host.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Zev Brenner. I always enjoyed, and it's been a while since I last had Elan Carr with us. He's the CEO of the Israeli-American Council, the IAC, but I had interviewed him many times when he was the Special Envoy for monitoring and combating anti-Semitism under President Donald Trump. Good to have you back again, Elan. Thank you for joining us.
It is very good to be with you as always, but I wish it were not under these atrocious circumstances.
No, it is atrocious. But I think one of the things that we're seeing for the most part is that Jews, Israelis in the United States, around the world are mobilizing. They're rallying for Israel. And I think that the IAC is here in a good position because you're rallying the troops all over the country that they should be supporting Israel. Because I'm seeing, somebody just called me before, one of my listeners, and said, is this a terrible time? I says, yes. And you look at even the Palestinian Arabs and the sympathizers, there are thousands of them marching in New York City and around the country, and we have to mobilize our community to do that. And thank you for organizing that around the United States.
Well, for sure. I mean, the IAC has organized major demonstrations, in some cases rallies for Israel, in some cases vigils for our slaughtered brothers and sisters, in some cases for the hostages, all across the country, from Boston through Austin to Los Angeles and everywhere in between, including in Times Square this Thursday in Times Square.
You're talking about tomorrow, basically.
Tomorrow. Exactly, tomorrow. Major demonstrations expressing solidarity with Israel, and it's critically important, Zev, because first of all, people are broken, people are personally shattered, and when we come together, we support each other, and we're there for each other, and we stand together through the pain and the suffering and the grief, and we strengthen ourselves, and that is so deeply important. But the second reason is because we need to send a clear and unequivocal message to our brothers and sisters on the ground in Israel, that first of all, we love them, we embrace them, we stand with them, and we comfort them. But second of all, we stand unequivocally for Israel's inalienable right to defend itself, and to defend itself fully, completely, and decisively, meaning to eliminate the genocidal threats facing the people of the state of Israel. That is our message, that Israel has a right to it, because every country, no country on earth could be expected to live under the continuous threat of genocide to its own people. That's what this is, Zev. This is genocidal anti-Semitism, and Israel will not stand for it anymore. And we, as the Israeli-American community, together with the Jewish-American community writ large, we're united behind Israel's right to see this through to its conclusion.
I'm glad you said that, because oftentimes in the United States, the Israeli community is really separate from the American Jewish community. They have their own lives, they have their own culture, not really integrated. But unfortunately, it takes a tragedy such as this to unite everyone, the Israeli community, the American Jewish community. We are one. We're brothers and sisters.
We are one, one nation, one people, or as it was said, with the moment of greatest unity, one person, one individual, Ish Echad Belev Echad, at the foot of Mount Sinai. And I think that's the unity we need today. We need to feel each other's suffering. We need to stand up for each other. And we need to realize that our destiny is together. And that means that we fight together, arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder, for the survival of the Jewish people in the Jewish homeland and around the world. Because as you pointed out, right after this unspeakable horror perpetrated upon innocent people, including children, who does that to children? What kind of hatred does that require? Right after that happened to our people in Israel, we see the sympathizers of Hamas around the country, in the United States of America, marching Like the neo-Nazis in Skokie, Illinois, who went to where the Holocaust survivors live to go march in front of Holocaust survivors, so too are these people no better than the Nazi Party of America marching as we're counting bodies. They're marching to support Hamas and to stand against the state of Israel. There is no justification for it. It's disgraceful. It's despicable. They have a right to do it under the First Amendment, but it has to be condemned unequivocally. And so we have to stand together, because what happened to the state of Israel is, yes, first of all, it's a Jewish issue, but it is a humanitarian issue. This was a crime against humanity, and that means that all of humanity has to unite with the state of Israel and stand with Israel's right to defend itself.
Now, who would have thought you were spent 4 years fighting, combating anti-Semitism under the previous administration? You took over the head of the IAC, dealing with Israeli matter. Who thought that you'd still be combating anti-Semitism in your new role? I'm sure you never imagined that.
No, it's truly staggering that no matter what happens to the good, no matter what our people do, bringing light and wisdom to the world, no matter what the state of Israel does, we still have to contend with vile, despicable anti-Semitism. And what happens to the bad, even genocide perpetrated against the Jewish people in the Jewish homeland so soon after the Holocaust, even that isn't enough to stop the anti-Semites. The blood of 1,400 Jews doesn't sate their appetites. And so they're out there on the streets and in the campuses calling for more of the same. Well, let me tell you something. Our response is total Jewish unity. We're going to condemn them. We're going to punish universities that don't condemn them, and they are being punished. They're seeing their donations starting to dry up. We are going to go after all of those who don't stand with Israel. We're going to take names, and we're going to make very, very clear that we will not stand for that kind of betrayal and that kind of immorality at a time when the world has to exhibit morality after this bloodletting, basically a mini Holocaust that was done to the people in southwestern Israel.
And by the way, it may not be a bad idea to organize a coordinated effort to pressure donors and to look up who gives to these major institutions, especially colleges and universities, and to get them to stop giving money to these universities. Maybe that money should go to Israeli universities. That may be an interesting campaign.
Yeah, I think you're right, Zev. I think, and I want to give a shout out to my friend Mark Rowan for his leadership. Is exactly what he's doing. He's standing up and he's saying not one penny more. And I call on all of anyone who cares about humanity, not only Jews, but anyone who cares about humanity, to stop giving money to universities that don't know the difference between death and life, or between genocidal anti-Semitism and the right of a free, democratic, beautiful country to defend itself. That will not stand. And I want to thank Mark Rowan and others, the Wexner Foundation and many others who have said, that's it, we're done. I think there's a real movement underway here, and I encourage all of our listeners, if you've donated, whether it's a few dollars or a few thousand or a few million to a university, now is the time to stand up, close that checkbook, and write them a letter saying, not a penny more from me until you shape up and get some moral clarity on the important issues of our day.
One of the things that, and I think it's a great thing, and I admire those that have done it, and if we can get more to do it, I think that's the biggest way to get universities and colleges and other institutions and businesses to realize that they can't support the supporters of Hamas terrorism is through the pocketbook, and major investments will be diverted to Israel, for example. I think they'll teach them a lesson. But one thing,
we're doing that in the IAC, Zev. Let me just tell you that we've absolutely put that message out to our community. Let's not forget, IAC represents 500,000 Israeli Americans across the country. We've put that out to our communities from East Coast to West Coast. And we're also doing things on campus, working with students, galvanizing support, offering counseling, training them on activism. We're training high school students. We're training college students on activism. We're creating an army of Israeli Americans because, while all Jews are grieving from this horrific tragedy visited upon our people. For us in the Israeli-American communities, it's all the more personal. It's all the closer. You know, our community, we're personally affected. Almost everyone in our community knows people who have been affected, who have been killed, who are missing. My staff across the country, I'm on the phone with staff. They literally don't know where their family members are. Or some of them have been killed. They got the worst news about their family members. Or some escaped with their lives, and they literally are traumatized. And so for us, we have a very, very important role as part of the organized Jewish community in bringing to the forefront the justness of Israel's cause, the suffering that we've endured, and the rights of the Jewish people and the state of Israel to defend itself decisively against this genocidal threat.
Elan Carr is our guest. He is the CEO of the Israeli American Council. They're rallying all decent people to rally behind Israel. One of the things that bothers me most, Elan, and I watch these demonstrations, and yes, some of them will say gas to Jews, but some of them are getting away with a slogan that I think also means to get rid of the Jews, get rid of Israel, and that is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. But it's really saying they don't want Israel. They don't want, how do you get that? By killing Jews. It's a code word for hate speech, but it's getting away with a lot of these demonstrations. You hear it over and over again on TV and thousands of people chanting it. It's frightening.
It is frightening. And you don't even have to say from the river to the sea. Free Palestine. When there's a march yelling and screaming free Palestine after 1,400 Israelis have been slaughtered, that is a call to genocide. What does free Palestine mean? What Palestine? By the way, Hamas is the elected leaders of Gaza. They elected Hamas to run Gaza. There is total self-determination of Palestinians in Gaza. So what free Palestine? And by the way, if these people cared at all about Palestinian rights, they would be protesting the cruelty of Hamas and the fact that there have been many, many hundreds of Palestinians, including children, murdered at the hands of Hamas in Gaza. But they don't do that. They don't care about Palestinian rights. Calls for free Palestine, whether it's from the river to the sea, or even if that's left out, are very simple. It's a very simple call. I'll translate it for the viewers. It means get rid of the Jews. Get rid of every last Jew and make the Jewish homeland Judenrein. That's what they're saying. And that's why we've got to call it out. Again, First Amendment right. People shouldn't be censored. But we have a right and we have an obligation to call it what it is. It's an anti-Semitic call for genocide against the Jewish people. And IAC is going to be shouting this from the rooftops and making very, very clear who these people are and what they're doing. And we're going to be holding accountable every single elected official and university president that doesn't condemn these sorts of despicable displays of Jew hatred.
Now, let me add, by the way, we have free speech, but if it's done at university, they should be banned from chanting and having these rallies at university. Brooklyn College, to its credit, wouldn't allow them, and they had to chant on the streets, which unfortunately was in a Jewish neighborhood in Flatbush, Brooklyn. But the fact that they're screaming this hate speech, kill the Jews in a more glorified manner, you know, from the river to the sea, free Palestine. So I think it should be banned from universities, and I think that should be part of. And it's hard to fight in all battles at one time, but it should not be allowed.
Yeah. So you raise an interesting point. You know, would any of these universities that profess fidelity to the First Amendment, and by the way, there is a First Amendment on college campuses as well, but would any of these universities that profess fidelity to the First Amendment allow a KKK rally?
Of course not.
Some kind of racist, despicable racist display? The answer is zero. The answer is none of them would allow it. And so give us a break. You know, none of this nonsense of tolerating Jew hatred on campuses and allowing these campuses to become hostile environments to their Jewish students. And they are hostile environments. You know, I've worked with the Brandeis Center for Justice Under Law, an amazing organization. They did a survey of American university students, students active in Jewish organizations on campus. Do you know over 50% reported concealing their Jewish identity or support for Israel because of anti-Semitism. Over 50%. That's in America. So it's a disgrace. What's happening on our universities is absolutely disgraceful. And then when you see these professors who are celebrating the slaughter of innocent Jews in Israel, celebrating it, saying they feel exhilarated. One said they feel exhilarated. One person said, a professor at Yale said, settlers aren't civilians, thereby basically justifying their slaughter. Settlers aren't civilians. First of all, I guess all of Israel is a settlement, right? That's what they believe. That's what I said, right? Free Palestine means Judenrein, right? So everyone's a settler. Every Jew is a settler, according to these people. And I got to tell you, Zev, our universities have become cesspools of anti-Jewish and anti-American sentiment, and we've got to clean out the cesspool.
Absolutely. Now you're having a demonstration tomorrow, Thursday, in New York City. Let's tell people about it.
Well, I am so excited that the Jewish community together. You began by saying, the Israeli Americans haven't always worked with the Jewish American organizations. Those days are over. IAC is an integral part of the Jewish world. I represented IAC at a meeting with all the organizational heads in Washington, D.C. Yesterday. Our demonstration tomorrow, which will be standing with the hostages and demanding the release of these poor people. Now we have it's apparently over 200 Israelis, including children, including babies, including the elderly, that were dragged into the hell of Hamas captivity. That's what we're doing tomorrow. We're doing it in the most public, visible place on earth, Times Square. It's going to be under billboards that we've bought all surrounding us that are going to be saying we stand with Israel, and it's going to be showing pictures of the hostages. I'm very, very proud that my friend, Mayor Eric Adams, who's been such a champion for the state of Israel, even before this horrific massacre, but certainly since, a champion, not just a friend, a leader and a champion. He's coming to the rally to stand with Israel and the hostages. I'm very proud of the Jewish organizational support. Our co-sponsors include UJA Federation of New York, the JCRC of New York, ADL, AJC, and the list goes on and on. Stand with us. I mean, it's a long list. And so I'm very, very proud that this is not, look, IAC organized this, but this isn't about us. It's about the Jewish people standing together for what's right, standing together against horrific injustice, and standing for these poor, innocent people who are in the hell of Hamas captivity and demanding that they be released at once. I want to thank all of our partners in this effort tomorrow. And to all our listeners, I encourage you, please come. It is amazing how much difference you can make by showing up, by standing shoulder to shoulder and arm with your fellow Jews and your fellow New Yorkers who are not Jewish also, who deeply care about this. It's amazing how much difference you can make when you say enough is enough. We demand justice. That's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. And I hope all of our listeners are going to be there with us in Times Square tomorrow.
Well, our listeners are very active going to rallies. Let's get the time one more time.
6 p.m. 6 p.m. tomorrow. That's Thursday, October 19th.
Everybody, please be there. And it's nice to see that even though there was a rally the other week, which the UJ Federation and JCRC, they're asking people to come back again because this is such a perilous situation for Israel, but not Israel. For every single Jew, Hamas and all these Islamic fundamentalist terrorist groups have declared a war against the Jews and really against the Christians and anybody that goes against their ideology. But it's the Jews that's on top of their list. But we have to remember that, and we have to be strong and resolute and unify. And Elan, I want to thank you for your leadership. With the first in the 4 years in the Trump presidency, where you've combated anti-Semitism overseas, and now that you are the CEO of the Israeli American Council, the IAC, still doing battle for all of us. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Zev. It's an honor to be doing this, and I can't thank you enough for what you do to shed light on the important issues affecting our people around the world. You make us stronger, Zev. And so I want to thank you, and I want to thank all of our listeners. And we'll see all of you in Times Square tomorrow.
God willing. God willing. And will there be another one after this too, as far as you know?
Oh, yeah. Until every last hostage is released and until Israel wins the war decisively, we're going to be continuing to come out and demand justice for the victims and demand that Israel's inalienable right to defend itself decisively be honored and supported strongly. Because again, civilization is on the line here. Yes, this was a war against the Jews, but it's also a war against civilization and goodness itself. And that requires that all of us come together so that we can prevail. And if we do, light will conquer the darkness.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Zev.
Thank you for tuning in to
Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, the pulse beat of the Jewish community.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Twitter.
Thank you. They'll be on tonight at 8 o'clock, and it's